Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. And today we're doing a video that I'm super excited to do. I was holding off doing it because I felt like I didn't have enough books to talk about, and then all of a sudden I realized that I just had a whole bunch. There was some that I hadn't put in my spreadsheet, and then in the month of June already, I have 4 6-star reads, so it's time to do this. So instead of doing kind of a mid-year freak out tag this year, because let's be honest, I have all the things to freak out about. My TBR is never ending. It goes on forever and ever. But I want to talk about the 6-star reads that I have so far this year. So before we dive into that, I do want to mention real quick, we do have 2 new members to the channel. We have Samantha Thompson, who joined at the Faded Friend level, and as always, Allie, who joined at the Romantic Renegade level. Thank you both so much for choosing to support the Book Refuge. It means so much to me. It lets me know that the content I'm putting out is valuable and that you want me to keep doing this. So, all right, thank you to my channel members. Then to go on, so adding a 6-star is something that I added near the end of the year last year. And it helped me to decide what my favorite books of the year were. So the way that I kind of broke this down is that I love to give 5 stars to books. Like, I go into every read hoping that it's going to be 5 stars. Okay. And I'm pretty liberal with giving my 5 stars. For a romance, I'm looking for it to feel, I want to feel the connection. I want it to be steamy. I want the plot to make sense, and I want to just feel giddy when I'm reading it. That gets me to a 5-star, which happens a lot because I read for enjoyment, and so books usually make me happy, and it isn't too much work to get me there. Now, a 6-star will maybe just have a little something extra, like I definitely need to have cried. Like, I know that happens a lot even in 5-star, but just for me personally, like, the book has to have brought me to tears because that shows me that the emotions that the author is trying to portray, like, they worked and it happened for me. So that's just kind of a personal thing, is that did this book make me cry? And I can honestly say every one of these I'm about to talk about, I've cried to varying degrees, whether that's just, you know, one single man tear down the side of my face or ugly sobbing, as is the case for a lot of these ones. So yeah, I'm going to go through these chronologically, starting, you know, with the beginning of the year, my first 6 stars leading up to the ones I already have had for the month of June. And like you said, there's 21 that I have. And the way that this will work is, I mean, if you were with me in December, what I am going to be doing from here on out is that the month of December, I want to reread all my favorite books, or the 6-star reads that I have. Because I know I'm going to have a ton of those, I start weeding them out throughout the year. Like, they still might have a 6-star, but I'll look at them and be like, okay, well, I already know that these certain books are the ones that are competing for the top 10 in my mind, right? And I'll try to kind of rank them out. But you know what? This is an imperfect science. It's all basically just recommending books to you guys that I think you need to read. That's what this is about. So let's go ahead and dive in, because we do have 21 books to talk about, and since they're my favorite, I'll try to keep it concise. I'll try to say, you know, the elements of it that really choked me up and what I loved, but you know, you're in for a long video, I'm sure. So the very first 6-star read that I had in the year of 2021 was Dead Man Walking by Giana Darling. I love Giana Darling. I love her books and the stories that she tells so much. This is book 6 in her The Fallen Men series. This is a motorcycle club, an MC romance, and this one is about Priest and B. He is a killer, a criminal, a psychopath, and he's an enforcer for the Fallen MC. He is vicious and brutal. And then there is a girl named B, who's actually the younger sister of Lulu, who is his motorcycle president Zeus's wife. And then she has a younger sister named B, who is really into bad boys. Okay, she's really into bad boys. And they definitely get into some tangled situations together. There is a lot of trigger warnings for these. There is blood play, knife play. There's a lot of heavier ones. Like, I'll just say check the trigger warnings for this, because you're about to see a very twisted view of my brain as we go through these 6-star reads. But the emotions that really made this for me is that whenever there is a psychopath, who finds a woman who awakens a part of him. I just get so excited about it. And the way that Priest comes alive for Bea, the way he becomes obsessed with her, I love it so much. So yeah. And also, Giana Darling just tells a beautiful story. I mean, like, this one doesn't have, I'm so excited for her villains duet, because like the artwork that she puts in them and the time she puts into them is so, it's so beautiful. Like, her formatting is just so good. She really does a great job. Like, sometimes with self-published books that can get a little wonky. So next, there is A Lesson in Blackmail by Katee Robichaux. This book, I wanted this to be all the pages long. This is an older woman, younger man, and it's actually a student teacher. She is, well, she's not completely his teacher. She's a librarian at this private school for uppity kids, and he is a well-off senior at that school who has kind of been bullying this librarian a little bit. And then one night he actually stalks her, and he discovers that she's going to a BDSM club, and he discovers she's a submissive. He doesn't know that he's a dominant yet. Like, that hasn't been awakened in him yet. But when he sees her, he's like, this is what I want. So this book is crazy, and there's so much about it that should cross all these lines and just be way too much. But somehow it works for me. It does. Just because of the learning curve that happens, and it's BDSM as therapy in some ways, the reason that she was involved in it. And this club that they go to is actually run by a psychologist and a group. And this was part of like a series that Katee Robichaux did with other authors, but she has her own series that is about this club and about the people who run it and how they get into that. So this book was suggested to me by my friend Heather from He Had Booktubes. She really loves this book, and I'm so glad that I gave it a try, because she just tells an amazing story. Like, it's just so good. Next, we have a bit of a softer one. We do. I do love some of those. And that is Bound to a Warrior by Donna Fletcher. This book was my first Donna Fletcher. No, it wasn't. I did read another series first. Okay, but this was my first Donna Fletcher that I purchased because I saw this on Instagram, and I mean, just look at this cover. I saw this on Instagram and I had to have it. But I was afraid to start with this one in case I wouldn't like it. So I actually started with one of her other series. But this book just really worked for me. And I know that for some people, they think like it's a bit repetitive with the storytelling and they just couldn't quite get into it the same way that I did. But there was something about this couple, Mercy and Duncan, who just lit up all my lights for me. This book starts with they've both been captured by the King's Men. This is medieval, I believe. Let me check. Yes, this is medieval. It takes place in the Scottish Highlands, of course. And they've both been captured by the King's Men, and they have been bound together. And they're given this, like, they jump off a cliff together. It's basically the beginning of it. And Mercy doesn't know how to swim, but she still trusted Duncan enough that they jump off this cliff. And now they're stuck in the wilderness together. They are cold and wet and without food, and they have a long way to travel to get back to his people. And so they have to trust each other. And the way that Duncan is able to, like, he, number one, is in awe of this woman who would trust this stranger, jump off a cliff with him. She doesn't whine, like he can tell that she is, you know, hasn't lived a rough life. He doesn't understand why she was in trouble with the King's Men. He knows why he is. But there's just a way that he is just in awe of her, and the way that he takes care of her and is just so gone for her. And the way that he's able to be respectful of her when they are literally like tied together and they need to huddle together for warmth and find food together and traverse this land together is so beautiful. And I also appreciate Mercy because she is this elegant woman who has a lot of weight on her shoulders, but she takes everything in stride. She doesn't freak out. When they're having to huddle together for warmth and he gets an erection, she's like, hey, I understand. Like, what are you going to do? You're literally rubbing up against me so we can stay warm. you know, she just doesn't have the same reactions that you would expect. And I really I love when we're in a dangerous situation and everyone's able to be practical about it and not crazy, you know, and not like making things worse. The things about this that really, the emotions that got me about this one were how Duncan loves her and the way that he speaks of her as a treasure and the way that he wants whatever's best for her. Oh, I just loved it. But this definitely is a softer, sweeter story. And a lot of the things that like brought the emotion out of me, it was just how soft and sweet it was, not for some of the greater crazy passions that are in some of these other books. And so this book just worked for me. It did. And there is a kind of repetitive storytelling that Donna Fletcher does have. I've read quite a few of her books at this point, but they're always so charming and I know what I'm going to get out of it. And sometimes that is just what you need. And a book like this hits you right at the right time and it's just wonderful. So this was a 6-star read for me. Then we go to a completely different track and we have Rebel Bitten by Lexi C. Foss. This is book 4 in her Blood Alliance series. I can't wait for book 5 to come out later this month. I'm just dying for it. But this book is a paranormal dystopian story where lichens and vampires rule the world and humans are a subservient race. They have no rights. They are used for their blood and their breeding purposes, and that's it. And at the beginning of this book, we have Ryder, who is a rebel vampire. He stumbles across Willow, who has escaped from a lichen breeding camp. And because of the world we live in, he's just like, oh, well, she's mine now. I'm going to keep her. And there are a lot of dynamics that are too hard to explain when I'm just doing a brief talk about a book. But the way that in this series as a whole, that the people who are being held prisoner or are treated as less than are able to prove their worth as a being, which you shouldn't have to do, but the world is evil, and especially in dystopian worlds ruled by evil paranormal, it's definitely still evil. But there's a reason why he secluded himself away from the ways of all the other vampires, and the reason, like the core story that's happening throughout these is there is a group of lichens and vampires who are trying to change the social order and bring humans back up to having equal rights. And so through him meeting Willow and starting to fall for her, Ryder decides that he needs to be a part of that group. And so the reason that this one particularly got a 6-star for me, why it's my favorite in the series, is there's a particular part in this book where our hero is going to be sacrificial, where he's going to do the thing where he's going to make the heroine hate him by saying some cruel words. And our heroine, Willow, is number 1, a badass bitch. And number 2, she looks him dead in the face and she says, fuck no. You're not going to do this to me. You're not going to try to scare me away by being cruel. I know that you love me. I know that we're in this together. So let's make a plan together instead of you scaring me away. And literally he's like taken aback, like, oh wow, I thought I was going to scare you away from me. And I just love when an author writes a trope like that, like a situation that's kind of a trope, and then just is like, no, we're not going to do it the way that you're used to it. Our heroine's smarter than that, as we as readers always wish that she would be. And I just will tell you that I just teared up and was crying because he doesn't think anyone cares about him. He doesn't think she could love him because he did basically keep her captive for quite a bit of the time. But one of the things that is great about a lot of the humans in this that we know is that when there is a lichen or a vampire who is showing that they care more than others, they're able to acknowledge that, you know, they're just trying their best. Like, they're in a world where they have complete control over us. So for any of them to show attention, to pay attention to someone lesser than them is actually kind of a big deal. And the fact that they're willing to grow and learn and change their way of thought when they have everything to lose by being that way, by being enlightened, they have everything to lose, is pretty cool. So I really love this series. I already know we're like not talking fast enough about these. So the next one I have is The Darkest Temptation by Danielle Laurie. This is book 3 in the Maid series. Book 4 is supposed to be coming out soon. I'm very excited. But this is a pretty dark mafia series. Book 3 is a captor captive. It is about this girl named Mila who goes to Russia to meet her father, and she ends up getting kidnapped by a rival who he pretends to be someone that she's going to have a one-night stand with, and she really kind of falls into his lap, and he takes advantage of that. And it is pretty brutal. Like, it's pretty brutal, but this is the kind of one where it's a hero who is so completely dead inside. It's the same thing with Dead Man Walking. Like, when they start to have these feelings, when they start to feel squishy and emotional over this woman, they're first off want to be violently opposed to it. Like, they violently don't want it to happen. So they lash out in a lot of different ways. But then there's this little flip switch that gets flipped where they're like, nope, you're mine. So forget about my revenge. I just want you to be mine. And I really loved Ronan. He was crazy and brutal, but also Mila is so naive. Like, there are warnings that she shouldn't be doing what she's doing, and she just kind of runs past all of them and flings herself at this guy. So you're also kind of like, wow, this innocent woman, I feel bad, but also she kind of did it to herself. It's fiction. I don't feel that way in real life. Moving on. All right. Moving along. I have Filthy Rich by Serena Akeroyd. This is book 2 in the Filthy Feckers, or the 5-Point Mob, whatever you want to call it. This book is so amazing. This series is amazing. Spoiler alert, this is not the only book that we're going to be talking about. But this one is about Owen and Anessa. This is an age gap, a very wide age gap, by the way. Anessa has like just turned 18. Owen is like in his mid-30s, and they've been engaged for a couple years, and she's actually gotten to know most of his family members better than him because he has refused to be around her. He doesn't want to get to know her. But then on their wedding day, she's walking up to meet him. Context, he's Irish, she's Russian. This is supposed to be a, alliance, the way that it is in mob life. And he notices that she has been horribly beaten. There's barely makeup covering, the makeup is barely covering the marks on her face. She is favoring her ribs. She's in extreme agony. And Owen is fucking pissed. He scoops this girl into his arm, literally at the altar of their church, and he's like, who did this to you? And she doesn't even really have to explain. He knows that it's her father. And he's like, how dare they hurt someone who's mine? Just because I haven't been around, just because I've neglected you for the last 2 years because you were a teenager, and it freaked him out a little bit that he was engaged to a teenager. How dare they touch and hurt what is mine? And he says, your father will never hurt you again. And so, number one, that's enough. I am into this story. I am here for it. It's beautiful. But then he steps it up, because when they go home and he brings her into his life, he really is just like, I want this to be your home. Neither of us wanted this to happen, but I'm going to protect you. You have the protection of my name, the protection of my body. This is what's happening. And he doesn't force himself on her. There is no bloody sheets happening like in some mafia that we love. And they watch movies together, and he kind of like dates his young wife to get to know her. And that's such a simple thing, but like in a mafia story, it's amazing. And when her father thinks that he can wheedle his way back in and try to smack her around, there are consequences. And then the other one in this series that I gotta mention is Filthy Sex by Serena Akeroyd, because yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please. This one is quite a bit bigger. It's like 200 pages more than the last one. But this one is about Camille and Brennan. Now, Camille is, I believe she's Anessa's sister. I think she's Anessa's sister. And she has been staying with the Sinners and Saints MC for the last few years. because she needed to be away from her father. But things got a little crazy with the MC. The guy who was fucking her, Nix, decided that he found a wife for himself, and so now Camille is just kind of left hanging. So she decides to broker a deal with Brennan, who her mother actually had a thing for many years ago. So this is another age gap. It wasn't before she was born or anything. She was like 5 or 6, and her mom had an affair with this guy. And her mother told her that if she ever really needed help, she should go to Brennan. Which is just, her mom was under a lot of craziness, okay? Like, this is the same dad who'd, like, beat up Anessa and beat up the other girls and everything. But she decides she has nothing left to lose, and she decides to make a deal with Brennan. Camille has been through a lot. There is a trigger warning, a big one for self-harm. Camille has no self-respect. She has no self-worth. She is a shell, and she hurts herself because of that. And the way that Brennan deals with that, which I won't spoil it for you, but the way that he steps in and stops that from happening and gives her alternate options, I have never read something quite like that, let alone in a mafia book. Serena Akeroyd does do wonderful, wonderful trigger warnings at the beginning of her books. So heed them. Heed her warnings when she says them, because she's not saying them as flippant. Like, this woman cares about you reading her book. She cares that you not be hurt by it. But it is very powerful. It is very, very powerful. And so, I mean, that's why this one was 6 stars. There's, like, nothing else to say. Brennan is amazing. All right, now we have another historical. This is Devil's Bride by Stephanie Lawrence. I did start the Sinsters this year. I'm stuck in like book 6 because they did start to get repetitive at a certain point. She kind of tells the same story over and over. The woman's always reluctant to marry and the man becomes obsessed or whatever. But reading the first one, reading Devil's Bride, the very first one, I listened to this on audio and read along with it. And I was floored. I was floored. The connection between Devil and Honoria is amazing. I love when a hero looks at a woman, sees her, and is like, that's my wife. It's not logical, but it's not insta-lust. He isn't like, I love her, but he's like, she's going to make a perfect wife. I know it. Let's make it happen. And I just love that in this one. This one also has a mystery going on in it. We have our heroine is just going for a walk, and she comes across this young man who's been shot. And Devil Sinster happens to come along, and he's the Duke of St. Ives. And it happens that this person who's been shot is his cousin. And so him and Honoria bring him to a gamekeeper's cabin that they're not far from, and they sit with him until he dies. And then the next morning, her employers, because Honoria is a governess, she's a finishing governess for older girls, she gets caught in this cabin with Devil. And he's like, well, this is perfect because I wanted to marry her already. So this will be perfect. But she is like, no, I don't care about my reputation. I'm not going to marry you just because we got caught together. Like, nothing happened. We were in here with a dead person all night. And they're like, it doesn't matter. So he goes about. And here's the thing, because he's now in mourning for a cousin, he can't pursue her as strongly as he wants to because he needs to be in mourning. So she's planning to kind of escape before he's out of mourning, but he's able to rake her in and actually bring her to London to stay with his family to try and woo her. And her family wants that to happen too. But the way that these two just clash against each other, the way that Devil learns to make concessions, the way that Honoria will never back down, is so beautiful. And the thing that brought me to tears in this one, the thing that made this one a 6-star for me, was when we have a conflict where someone is trying to stir up trouble between their married relationship. And Devil chooses to think through everything first before flying off the handle and freaking out. And again, this goes back, like, whenever an author can usurp my expectations, when she can change what I think about something, I'm so impressed with that. It just makes me so happy when they can mix it up. All right. A Quart of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. Yes, these are my beautiful covers. I never get to show them off enough. So let me just show you the artwork. Ooh, of these ones. So this is book 5 in her series, or, you know, the first one in the more adult level of storytelling. And I loved it. I've been a fan of Sarah J. Maas for 5+ years. This book, especially as someone who I mostly only like to read adult fantasy now if I'm going to read it, this book gave me everything I wanted. Nesta is a broken character. She's been through a lot. She has a lot of self-hate and a lot of hate for everyone else, or what it appears. This book meant so much to me. We are struggling with a heroine who's struggling with alcoholism, self-hate, a bad relationship with her father, who is now no longer around, so she can't even work on fixing it, and a man who wants to love her and is ready to be there for her, and she just can't accept that love. She just can't accept that love as something that she deserves. And watching her have to work through her own issues so that she can be lovable is phenomenal to me. And I don't care what anyone else says. Everyone else is welcome to their opinions. This was a 6-star book for me. I adore Nesta. I love her. Even when she's being vile and cruel and you just see her trashing everything around her. She's a toddler throwing a tantrum. She is a person just wrecking everything in a room. She's a bull in a china shop. Because the more you see her doing that, the deeper she dives down into that, you know, the more painful it's going to be when she feels remorse and needs to make amends. And it was beautiful to me. I cried so many times reading this book. There are tears on the pages of this book. So I freaking love it. I love it. Then there is Ruthless Creatures by J.T. Geissinger, another mafia. There's much more mafia to go, just so you know. This book is bonkers. This is a hero named Cage and Nat. And Nat is trying to get over her lost love. She had a fiance disappear 5 years ago, and he's being officially declared dead. And so her friend is trying to get her back on the market, and she runs into Cage at a bar, and he's dangerous. He's like, we can't have anything serious, but I want to have something with you. And they go on this crazy journey together. And this is one where the reasons why this one is a 6-star has a lot to do with their sexual relationship. He definitely is a bit of a dom, and there's a scene in here, and I'll say this because I want people to get it, where to get her to let him spank her, he lets her spank him first to show her what it will feel like. He's perfection. He's perfection. Next we have Thief of Shadows by Elizabeth Hoyt. This is book 4 in the Maiden Lane series. I'll show you the step back because some of my beautiful viewers actually sent me a copy of this because this was the only one I couldn't find with a step back, and it's my favorite one. This one is about Winter Makepeace and Isabel Beckenhall. She is a widow who has had some serious heartbreak. She has had some heartbreak in her life. There are trigger warnings for infertility in this, and they are pretty painful ones. So that's why, you know, I gotta share that out the front. But this is a male virgin hero. He's a Batman type character doing good in the shadows, and he does not want to be distracted by a woman. He, number one, has never seen a woman that he wanted to distract him. But when because in this series, he is the head of an orphanage, there is a society of women who are taking care, you know, they are the founders, and they decide that Winter isn't the best person to represent them. And so Isabel decides to, well, she gets elected to kind of be his guide to help him be more respectable so that he can be the one that stays taking care of the, you know, being in charge of the children, and that forces them into closer proximity. And there's so many things about this one that make it 6-star. This one also has a heroine trying to push the hero away, and she says some very cruel things to him. And our hero is like, I'm gonna stop you here before you say some things you can't take back. I know you're angry and hurting, and so the things coming out of your mouth aren't the truth. And I love that aspect because it very much shows that he's dealt with a lot of children because children say things that they don't mean all the time. But their love was so beautiful. And the sex scenes in this are so steamy and precious. And she has obviously a lot of anxiety about not being able to have children. She's lost quite a few children. And so she's like, well, if I can't ever give you children, you know, you'll be unhappy. And he's like, woman, the children are coming out my ears. I literally raise children all the time. Like, you can have more children than you can handle. And I love that. I love Winter. He's one of my swooniest boys. And I love a virgin hero who can be so romantic as Winter can. And he's never let a woman distract him before, but he knows that Isabel is the one for him. And then one more from that series would be Dearest Rogue. And this is about Lady Phoebe Batten and Captain James Trevelyan. This is an age gap, older man. It's a wounded hero. Our heroine, she's also blind. She's been going blind since she was young, and so James is her bodyguard. This is a bodyguard romance. James was previously, obviously, a captain in the King's Dragoons. Is there a king at this time? Captain in the King's Dragoons, I think. Yes, it is, because it says the 1740s. And so he is retired from that, and he is her bodyguard. And Phoebe and him have the very, like, antagonistic relationship. She hates that he bosses her around all the time and that he prevents her from doing certain things, mostly for her safety. But she also is extremely attracted to him. She loves the sound of his voice. She loves the feel of his hands. And so she's actually the one to make the first move. And when a dangerous situation happens that causes her to need to be removed from the situation, he takes her to his home, and there she really gets to know him even better. So I loved this. I love that Phoebe's the one who knows her own mind, and I love that James comes to know more about her and realize, you know, the things that she can handle, and that she doesn't want to be wrapped up in bubble wrap and kept on a shelf. She wants to live. We got to keep it moving here. We have Still by Kennedy Ryan. I talk about this book so much lately, so we'll just keep it rolling here with this. But this is book 3 in the Grip trilogy, so you do need to read the other 2 first. But this one also deals with loss of a child and issues with there. It's very heavy, but the love between these two, this is a rapper and his manager, and it's a slow burn, long time taking romance. They know each other when they're young, and then something keeps them apart. And so in Grip, we're really dealing with them trying to find each other, but in Still, we're dealing with how everyone else feels about their relationship, and whether Grip is selling out by marrying a white woman, whether he's like getting disconnected from his community, whether he still cares enough. Is he doing enough? But the love of these two will bust all that shit down. You know, the love of these two is more important than race and poverty and where they came from and who they are. It's about them being together and the path that they'll forge together, and their love being strong enough to overcome all of it. And it's freaking amazing. It's so good. It's so good. All right. Then we have some more mafia. We have Stolen Heir by Sophie Lark. This one is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. We have Nessa and Miko. Miko is trying to get revenge against some of the mob families for something that happened to his sister when she was young, and so he sees an opportunity and he takes it by stealing Nessa. She is a ballerina. She is the youngest of the Griffin children. I always forget if she's Griffin or Gallo. She's Griffin. And so nobody really pays attention to her. They love her, but they keep her out of all of the mob life. And in doing so, they've left her vulnerable. And so Miko exploits that, and he snaps up this little ballerina for himself. He's planning to keep his distance from her, but they wheedle their way into each other's hearts, and it's beautiful. Sophie Lark is also someone who likes to usurp your expectations, and the way that she has them deal with like the conflict in this one is amazing. This also does have a lot of elements of Beauty and the Beast, which can be fun. And then there is Broken Vow. This is book 5 in the Brutal Birthright series, and this is about Riona, who is actually who is Nessa's older sister, and she is a lawyer. She does work for the family, and she is in danger. There have been some attempts on her life, and so she gets assigned Rylan to be her bodyguard. He is a friend of the family. He is an ex-military guy, and he is a fun-loving, sunshine cowboy from Tennessee, and Riona is this hardened, grumpy businesswoman. So this is a grumpy sunshine, and again, I say again because I definitely have a thing. This is a bodyguard romance, and when an attempt goes too far and is just too much, he takes her home to Tennessee. He removes her from Chicago, takes her away from that in the middle of the night, and they go to stay at his family ranch in Tennessee. So it is a fish out of water, having Riona be on this ranch with his family, and it's absolutely beautiful. I love Rylan so much. And the reason that this one got a 6-star for me is that this is a case of, minute spoiler, of a heroine making a grand gesture. And that doesn't happen very often. I know we like to see our men do certain things, but this is a case of like Rylan is offering this woman everything of his heart. And she needs to be the one to prove her love to him. And I love that so much. And Rylan is just so sweet. And he's funny and he's delightful. And I just love them so much. Then we have Neon Gods by Katee Robert. And I'm so happy this is out in the world. This just came out at the beginning of June. But I read this book back, I think in March, maybe March or April, probably April, because I got an arc of this, and I'm so happy that everyone's loving it so much. It's blowing up on TikTok and Instagram and everywhere, and it is so deserving. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling. Oop, there's some sirens. It is kind of sort of set in modern times, but it's also in a different world. I believe this has a map even. There's Olympus. That's cool. But Persephone, her mother is trying to marry her off to Zeus. And so that's bad because Zeus has recently had quite a few of his wives die. And it's suspected and pretty much sure that he's the one who did it. So on the night of her engagement party, which she doesn't even know is an engagement party, she makes a run for it. And she ends up running across a bridge, Cypress Bridge, over the river Styx, and arrives in Hades territory. Okay? Which it was believed that the line of Hades had died out, because the way that things go in this story is that the title of the god is like elective kind of thing, or you're born into it. So it was believed that the line of Hades had died out. He's thought of as just a rumor. Well, that proves not to be true when Persephone ends up literally falling at his feet, and he decides to keep her hostage. And then they decide to have a fake dating situation to make Zeus angry and hopefully get him to mess up, so that Hades can get revenge against him for some things that he's done. And it's beautiful. It's sexy. There is some BDSM happening in here, some voyeurism, but it's all like Hades is the king of consent, so we never have to worry about any of that. And Persephone is excited to be being set free and to be trying things that she's never tried before. And Hades, he's delightful. He is a secret soft boy underneath it all. It's delightful. All right, so then there is Savage Tracker by Maggie Cole. And I feel a little bad having this in here, but I can't help myself. This book doesn't come out until August 1st. It's going to be book 5 in her Mafia War series. Maggie is one of the sweetest women and authors that I've ever had the opportunity to work with. And so she's given me arcs of quite a few of the books, and a lot of them have been 5-star reads for me. I really did enjoy Ruthless, Stranger, and Broken Fighter. I really liked those a lot, but this one was 6 stars for me. And so I can't say too much about it because most people haven't read any of the other ones yet, but you'll know who the heroine is if you've read book 3, which just came out, which I actually have right here, Cruel Enforcer, because our heroine in that one is a lawyer, and one of the cases she's handling is a divorce for a woman named Serena. Serena has been in an abusive relationship with her husband. I won't go into the full aspects of it because it's not revealed until this book what's happening to her. But what I can say is that in book 3, she ends up being offered to stay in one of the Ivanovs, they own a lot of property, and they have is these condos. And so one of the Ivanovs' names is Albrecht, and so he lives in that building. And one of his cousins or one of his brothers, I don't know who, asks him to keep an eye on Selena. And they have this crazy attraction for each other, and they happen to have their sexual preferences aligned in a way that they didn't expect to align. And also, she still has that crazy ex-husband who wants her back pretty viciously, and so there's a lot of drama. And that's all that I can say about this one in this. I'm sure this one will be one I read again at the end of the year, and we'll be able to talk more about it. But if you haven't started the Mafia Wars yet, I highly recommend you do. I haven't had anything lower than a 4-star in that series, and most of them have been 5s. Then we have Run, Posy, Run by Kate C. Wells. This is another one that I read all these are pretty recently. I need to stop saying that, but you know how I get. This is about Posy and Dario. And this book starts, this is a mafioso as well. Dario is an accountant and moneymaker for the mafia. And Posy is his girlfriend. And this book starts out with, he brings her into his office. They have this very detached relationship. Even though they have they're together all the time. He really keeps his distance for her. He likes her for her mind. He likes playing chess and board games with her and then having sex with her when he wants. But he really kind of keeps himself detached. And he definitely is a psychopath. This book actually deals into the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath, which is kind of cool because I feel like they're words we throw around interchangeably, but they are different. And this book starts with her being called into his office, and he shows her a graphic video that someone has taken of her. And the timestamp has been changed to make it seem like it was from recently. And she's like, that video is from 5 years ago. I didn't even know you yet. And he doesn't believe her. He's like, how dare you cheat on me? I give you everything you could ever want. Fuck out of here. And so he kicks her out. And she's like, wow, this man I've been seeing for this amount of time wasn't even willing to listen to what I had to say. And so she's like, well, fuck you. I'll run. And so she runs. And she runs pretty well. But the thing is, Dario isn't the boss. He's an accountant. And his boss doesn't like that Dario just sent Posy free. And so he sends some people after her. And so Dario now is trying to find her before his boss can find her and bring her home and keep her safe. But she's like, you didn't even care about me. You just sent me away. So that's part of this book. And then, spoiler alert, the second part of this book is her being back in his clutches. And they're really talking, honestly, Dario is trying to understand where he went wrong because he's not very emotional. And he's like, you never told me that there were things about us that you didn't like. You've never explained those. So how was I supposed to know that I was mishandling you? Because he's not someone who can read the situation correctly. And so it really leads to some fascinating conversations about what we let people do to us when we think we deserve certain things. And I cried my eyes out a few times in this story. Then there's Real by Kennedy Ryan. Oh my gosh, I just talked about this one recently. This is absolutely beautiful. This book just came out last Tuesday. I have so many feelings about it. This is about Cannon, who is a director, and Neva, who is an aspiring actress, and she works on Broadway. And he asked her to be the star in a new movie, which is going to be the life of Desi Blue, who was a actress in the 1940s. 50s, and is not very well known, and he wants to make her story known. He has also had bad interactions with dating actresses on his films before, so he is not going to be doing that this time, even though him and Neva have this insane chemistry for each other, insane. They're trying to fight it as hard as they can, and yeah, this has trigger warnings for terminal illness and long-term illness, so know that. But this is I am still undecided if I like Still or Real better. So I'm going to give it some space, and when I do my rereads at the end of the year, we'll see. But Real may be my favorite Kennedy Ryan. I just don't know if I like it better than Still. And I don't know my feelings, but it's 6-star, no doubt. Lessons in Sin by Pam Godwin. This book comes out the end of June. This is about Magnus, who is a priest and a headmaster of a all-girls Catholic school, and Tinsley Constantine, who is an 18-year-old who her family is trying to control. She is part of I don't know if they're a criminal family, but they are a high-powered business family, and they have plans for her. They have an arranged marriage plans for her, and they want her to stay a virgin and to stay under control. And so they put her under Magnus's control. Magnus never has been attracted to women younger than him, especially teenagers, and he likes to hurt women when they have sex. The meeting of the minds that happens in this book, I can't explain. And this isn't necessarily a dark book, which I know is surprising because it's Pam Godwin. It definitely is taboo, just based on the premise of the story, him being a priest, her being 18, him being her teacher, all these things. But I was fascinated by this story. It sucked me in so tightly, and it was just beautiful. Like, I cried so many times, and when Magnus snaps and becomes obsessed with her, it is actually beautiful. The things that he thinks about her and the way that he feels, and it's magnificent. And then the last one that I want to mention, which I just finished the other day, is just coming out the day that I filmed this, is The Bully by Sophie Lark. This is book 3 in the Kingmaker series, which is a second generation story, basically. So the Brutal Birthright series is the parents of the kids from the Kingmaker. The Kingmaker series is a school for the mafia children to learn their trade and to become successful and to be able to be good little criminals in the future. If you've read the first 2 books in this series, you'll know that Kat and Dean have a history. Dean caught Kat doing something that she definitely shouldn't have been doing, and is enough to get her killed, actually. And he decides that he wants her to be his slave. And I mean that in a couple ways. But what he doesn't realize is how connected he is becoming to her by having her be his slave, and the power that she gets from it that she just isn't expecting to get. And it was so beautiful. Dean has such a journey to go on. So does Kat. Really, so does Kat. But Dean has such a journey to go on. And the thing is, if I hadn't read book 1 and 2, and I hadn't seen where he started and see where we were going with it, I wouldn't have believed it. I wouldn't have believed it. This was so powerful. And even when there were times where I thought, oh wow, Dean's going too far with this. Like, if he does this to Kat, I can't forgive him. Wrong. Because he was being changed as well by their experiences together. And the way that they explore their sexuality together, and the people that they're becoming because of knowing each other. It just couldn't be anything but a 6-star for me. And I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait. Sophie Lark's going to be on my channel this coming Saturday, and I'm in awe of this woman, and I'm super intimidated, but so excited to speak with her, and I want to know all her secrets. It's going to be amazing. So, all right. Thank you so much for watching this video. I know this was super long, but these are all of the 6-star reads I've had so far this year. Are there some that you're very excited to try? Tell me what your 6-star books would be. All right? Tell me some of them. I know most people don't do the 6 stars the way that I do, but it has been a really good practice for me to see what's the difference between a 5 and a 6-star for me. And I think I'm figuring it out. So thank you so much for watching. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week, and you can watch some of them right now. Bye.